rematch of an earlier November matchup between BYU and Texas Tech for the Big 12 championship. BYU is trying to figure out how do they make this result different. Everybody, I feel like, is going to pick Texas Tech to win this game, and the Red Raiders are 13.5-point favorites. But let's dive into what BYU can do. Now, there's a couple of things that they can do, and they're relatively simple. But let's dive into this team. This has been a team that continues surprising people, and anybody that has doubts about Kalani Sitake after this year probably is just going to be wrong the rest of their life. Sitake has exceeded expectations for yet another year, and this team is 11-1 because of the work that he's done. And this is a team that came into the year with adversity. Quarterback situation was up in the air. Jake Retzlaff transfers out of the program. You're not sure who's going to be the quarterback, and Bear Bachmeier steps up and takes over. Now, there were concerns about him as a freshman. Freshman quarterbacks, there's always some growing pains. And while there are some things that he obviously still has to get better at, this has been a guy that's provided some stability. He's provided some relief of that anxiety or the anxieties surrounding the quarterback position. And Sitake's done a great job of getting his quarterback to just play within the system and play consistently. Over 2,500 yards, 14 touchdowns to 4 interceptions. He's also been a factor as a runner, 529 yards and 11 touchdowns, which is tied for first on the team. He's a tough, physical player who does not shy away from contact. He does not shy away from the moment, and he makes plays when they're given to him. When the opportunity has been given, he takes it and runs with it. Now, the nice thing is that LJ Martin has been as advertised. Over 1,200 yards with 11 touchdowns, averaging 5.7 yards per catch. This was a rushing attack that we knew was going to be solid. It's just that we haven't had to see the depth that we know they have. BYU's got good depth at the running back position. They just haven't had to use it. Martin stayed healthy, knock on wood. He's been consistent, and Bachmeier has given them another element to that rushing attack as well. Now, we also saw players step up in the passing attack. Parker Kingston actually leads the team in receiving, which is crazy with what we saw coming into the year. 57 catches, which is first, 804 yards is first, and he's tied with Chase Roberts with 5 touchdowns. Parker Kingston was a dynamic returner that we had questions about coming into this year. He's exceeded those expectations. He's made himself a reliable wide receiver, and now they have more ways to get him the football. And if you've watched BYU this year, you know exactly what he's capable of doing with a football in his hands. You know exactly how dangerous he can be when he has the ball. Chase Roberts was the guy that we thought, okay, this is the stable player that gives them a go-to wide receiver option. 44 catches for him, 713 yards, and that team leading, tied with Kingston, 5 touchdowns. That's a great duo. Carson Ryan's been solid as a tight end as well. He stepped up in a big way. LJ Martin's also contributed. Now, one thing to keep note of, JoJo Phillips continues to make some interesting plays. He was hurt for most of the year, and now he's been playing well as of late. He's a big X factor that I don't think a lot of people are paying attention to, and he's still kind of trying to get his chemistry with Bachmeier. He's still trying to get his footing, trying to get used to what's going on in this offense. That is someone that could be a big difference maker. He has good size that Texas Tech isn't maybe used to seeing, and I think that's going to be something to keep an eye on. That's going to be really fun for BYU if they're able to make that happen. Now, a big reason for this BYU team's success is the defense. The defense has exceeded expectations. From turnovers to disruptive plays to new faces stepping up in a big way. Coming into this year, there were questions about everything on the defense except for linebacker. There were questions about the defensive line. There were questions about the secondary. Not necessarily super negative, but just questions of who are the guys that are going to step up? Who are the players that will be those reliable playmakers? The linebacker position provided that stability. Mostly Isaiah Glasker and Jack Kelly. Now Siale Isura has been the guy that we had questioned about, who's that third guy? Asura has been that third guy, and he has played really well. It's just that Glasgow and Kelly are on another level. Glasgow, 55 tackles, 8.5 tackles for loss, 3 sacks, 2 picks. Jack Kelly, 52 tackles, 12.5 tackles for loss, and also a team leading 9 sacks. Those two have been absolute studs, and the guys around him have elevated their play to match that. The secondary has been very good. When you look at what they've been able to do, this defense is a typical, stereotypical BYU defense. Physical in the trenches, disruptive in terms of turnovers. They have multiple guys with 2+ interceptions this year. That has been a group that's thrived on disruptive plays. Tanner Wall and Evan Johnson have 4 picks each. That's a group that loves to make life difficult. And one of the keys for this game is turnovers. If you're BYU, you have to find a way to turn over Texas Tech. If you can create turnovers early, we've seen Texas Tech struggle with certain teams. We've seen them struggle early in games. And if BYU can turn up the heat, it has to be in the beginning of the game. Texas Tech is one of those teams that only gets better as the game progresses. If you allow them to just continue going as scheduled, this is going to be a tough team to beat. If you put something in the way, put an obstacle, put a wrench in their plans, that's where you can get Texas Tech. That's where BYU can shock them. BYU's turnovers are going to play a huge role. When you look at what happened in the first matchup, that was a game that Texas Tech honestly should have won by more. So if you're going to put a wrench in things, you have to do it via turnovers. Now for Texas Tech, the real, I think, game plan for this is just keep doing what you're doing. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. You don't need to do anything different. This is a team that when they're playing at a high level, they'll take over any game. Now, the one thing I will say that they could do different is figure out a way to start putting 6 points on the board instead of 3. Get touchdowns instead of field goals. One of the biggest things that they're going to have to do in the playoff is score touchdowns. Field goals are fine in some of these games, but touchdowns have to be a priority. If you are going to win a national championship, you have to put up touchdowns against some of the teams that they'll face. I think that that's going to be a huge key for them going forward. In this game, maybe it won't matter. It didn't matter in the first matchup between these two, but in the future, it is going to matter. Texas Tech has to score touchdowns instead of field goals. Now, ever since Baron Morton has been the undisputed starter, this offense has been successful. Again, the stalled drives is where you have a concern. But Baron Morton's been solid. Over 2,400 yards, 20 touchdowns to 4 picks. The other thing that we saw this year, we knew that the passing attack was going to be good. We knew that they had the talent. But what was the rushing attack going to look like? Now, this team brought in Quinton Joyner to be that RB1, and there's a lot of excitement about what he could do for this offense. He goes down, and there are questions about what Cameron Dickey and Jacoby Williams can do. Apparently, those questions were ridiculous, and I was one of those people that was concerned about it. But those questions were ridiculous. All Cameron Dickey has done is run for over 1,000 yards and 13 touchdowns. Jacoby Williams, over 1,000 total yards and 8 touchdowns as well. They have been a dynamic duo and a big reason why this team's found balance. In fact, the passing attack that we expected to be so successful does not have a 1,000-yard receiver. Now, by the end of the season, that will change. Caleb Douglas has 823 yards and 7 touchdowns. Reginald Virgil's been a nice addition. 590 yards and 6 touchdowns for him. Coy Aiken, 560 yards and 4 touchdowns. Terrence Carter, 530 and 5. That foursome has been tremendous, and they've kind of taken their turns being the star player for that passing attack. That gives Baron Morton so much peace of mind knowing that he can just do what he wants, and this offense should be able to have success no matter what. That's extremely exciting if you're Texas Tech. The defense has also been absolutely phenomenal. When you look at what Shale Wood has been able to do, having the talent they do puts them in a position to win football games. David Bailey and Romello Height are difference makers up front. Jacob Rodriguez is in contention for the Heisman Trophy. They're even using him on offense. 104 tackles, 10 tackles for loss, 4 picks, 7 forced fumbles. Dude has been everywhere. And we knew that the linebackers were good. It's just the defensive line has stepped up in a big way. This game, honestly, there's not much that I've seen from BYU recently that's going to make me think that the rematch is going to end differently. Texas Tech is a 13.5-point favorite, and there's a reason for that. I think the Red Raiders win this. They win the Big 12 title as long as they take care of the football, and they'll be on to the college football playoff, where their concerns will then turn to how do we score enough points against the good teams to be able to win those types of games.